Age of Wonders Planetfall. This is a game that my kids and I saw at Gen Con 2023. We played the demo, we liked it, and we bought the game right away. And so, but then it was on the shelf for a while. We were excited to play, we just somehow never had the time, but now finally we played it. And so, after playing it more, and the demo, I think it's time for me to share some ideas and opinions with you. So we are intergalactic explorers, corporations, empires, that sort of thing. And we're going out fighting enemies, collecting energy, and discovering ancient sites. The game lasts 7 rounds. Each round is a different planet that we are exploring, and it is represented by a different deck. You shuffle the cards on the deck, and then you place them next to this display here in 3 lines, and the number of cards that go in each line depends on the number of players. For example, here I set it up simply for 2 players. Then we have, well, the different empires that we have. Each player has a display such as this one, in which you keep track of the victory points that hopefully you will collect during the game, also of experience, strength, and energy. Experience and strength are resources that you accumulate and you spend. Experience is a value, is a stat that can only go up, never down, but it's useful because you need it to pass certain checks. The game is simplicity itself, basically is action selection. Select an action and do it, but depending on the action that you select, that will affect the turn of later things. So, this is the order in which the players go. Right now it's Orange turn. And so Orange can place their marker on any card or on one of these operation boxes on the board. And suppose that Orange decides to place their marker there. Then the next player goes, and so they decide, for example, to do that. Once all players have placed their markers, so we start resolving the selected actions left to right and top to bottom, like you're reading a book. So, for example, now this player goes, and also then you place them back in the order track in the order in which they resolve their actions. This player resolves that action, and that's what happens. Now purple goes first, and they select that, and orange selects that, so that's how we're gonna resolve them, again in that order. So you're gonna resolve 2 actions per player per round, then you clean it all up and you set up the next stage, and that's the general idea, that's the general flow of the game. You play like that for 7 rounds, and then you see who has the most points. You should be collecting points during the game, hopefully. Also, there are 3 conditions that you will give you victory points at the end of the game. And there are different sets of conditions. You select one randomly or by agreement at the beginning of the game. So you got some variety there in what you're trying to score. As for the actions themselves, the ones that you will be resolving after you select them with your wooden token. Pick up stuff, pretty simple. You collect energy. Now, as you can see, the values on the cards depend on the line or the level in which they are. And usually, when they're the lower level, they're better. But the trade-off is that you're gonna go later, probably in the next action selection round. Here you collect energy, or you can choose to tag this under your personal empire mat, and so now you'll get that amount of energy every turn instead of a one-time advantage. Science, you need to spend energy, but then you gain the corresponding number of victory points and an advantage for the rest of the game. Very neat. Fighting. This is how much strength you need to spend. Also, you need to demonstrate that you have that much experience. If you don't have enough experience, you can pay for each missing experience level by consuming extra strength. And you gain experience. Sometimes you need experience to gain experience, energy, victory points, all the good stuff. Sometimes, instead of fighting them, you can do diplomacy. If you have enough energy, then you can spend experience, you can spend energy instead of strength. Do you find ancient structures from a lost civilization? You spend energy, or if you're allowed, you can spend strength and you collect the corresponding victory points, experience. This bonuses if you have multiple of the same kind. And this is again finding ancient structures just without the option of fighting it instead. So these are the actions really: pick up, pick up technology, fighting, and find ancient sites. You will create hopefully an engine of abilities, an engine of different resources, because ultimately you're selecting cards, performing the action. You do that twice per round for 7 rounds, count victory points. The player with the highest score wins the game. We like Planetfall. In my family, we like Planetfall. We liked it from the beginning when we tried it as a demo, and we like having it at home. It's very light, and that's one of the advantages for a family game especially, is one that the rules are so simple and intuitive. Even, I can see if we don't play for a while, it's going to take just a second to get it started. It's quick to set up. You shuffle those 7 decks and you're pretty much good to go. And gameplay is very simple, very intuitive, with a couple of interesting things. You have an engine building game, like boiled down to the essentials of select an action, and that's the general idea. Trade opportunity for other kind of resources. It costs less, but I'm gonna go late. I'm gonna go later in a turn, in a later turn. It's a very simple idea. I think it's minimalistic even. I don't know if you could remove anything and still have a game. And as you're doing these things, again, you probably will want to create a bit of an engine of resources that you get every turn by turning those pickup cards into permanent bonuses. Spam your own abilities because each empire has different abilities that it can do. Try to form sets when you find those ancient structures, because that will give you extra points. So it has action selection. Interesting, is very simple but effective opportunity cost, and the engine building. One thing, of course, is that on one hand, it's so linear, it's so simple, it's so slim, that of course it ends up being abstract. There wasn't a single second in which I had the feeling that my characters were fighting an ancient civilization, or it could have been a fight, but since I spent energy, since I moved that cube instead of that cube, now we were doing diplomacy. It's so the theme feels completely pasted on, which is still better than not having a theme. They're still better than these cards had nothing on it. It just so happens I really like the art. I really find it atmospheric. I wished it could be a gateway to having a feeling of exploring and interacting with different civilizations. But then, of course, maybe there'll be too much of that. I'm like, oh, but this game is too many rules for what it is. I wish it was simpler. Sometimes that's how our mind works, at least mine. So what you have here is a basically abstract game, but with cool looking art, really cool looking art. But it's an abstract game with a very simple engine building, action selection, and this idea with the opportunity cost, very simple, but it's still fun, because it's still, well, I could get this for 2 things or for something else. Oh, I think I didn't mention the operations card, and I remember the operations box. It's just another action in which you get more flexibility into what you collect, but it doesn't change any of the general idea that they gave you. Select an action, resolve it, etc., etc., etc. One thing, again, we played twice, then we put it away. A couple of days later, next weekend, we played it again, and it's perfectly fine. But I think it'll get repetitive after a while, because the general idea is still pretty much the same. And again, these are resources. There is energy, there is strength. They don't have all that much depth. You only have 7 turns to build your engine, and there isn't a ton of things that you can do. So as an occasional filler, as an occasional family-friendly filler, I'm happy that I have it in my collection. This is gonna stay. Even though I think it's gonna plateau fairly soon. I don't think it's gonna be all that replayable, but I'm gonna replay it because you know what? If my 13-year-old likes it, I'm always gonna be happy to play a game with the young one. Age of Wonders Planetfall. It's simple, it's fun, but it's also abstract, and the replay value, I have my misgivings. And that's my assessment, I guess, for Age of Wonders Planetfall.